Hello and welcome to this reporter's special. I'm Lyse Doucet in Kabul, the Afghan capital where a new political process is gathering pace after the fall of the Taliban. In early June, hundreds of Afghans will gather from across this country to choose their new leaders. They call it a Loya Jirga, a grand national assembly. Throughout Afghan history, Loya Jirgas have been held at defining moments. For centuries, it was the king who called them. And this time, after decades of war, the Loya Jirga will be opened by a king, or at least a former monarch. Zahir Shah has returned to his country 29 years after he was ousted in a bloodless coup by his cousin. Who is this man they still call Allah Hazrat, Your Majesty? Has he come home to die or to make a difference? This is the story of the king's return. Rome gave refuge to Zahir Shah, but not much more. Even the magnificence of the eternal city held little appeal as he agonized about his country from afar. Afghanistan's exiled monarch never even learned to speak Italian, although he did occasionally venture out for coffee in the square. His home here is outside the bustle of Rome, for years forgotten by the world. But since September 11th, many have taken this route to see him. Foreign diplomats, Afghan petitioners. A trip I also made through gently rolling countryside into the gated suburb of Al-Jata, where rings of concrete and steel protect Zahir Shah. The cordon has tightened since September 11th. Inside a modest villa, there are no royal trappings, just the kisses fit for a king. He greets me in the French learned in the Paris lycées of his youth. The past is a little blurred for this frail man of 87. But sitting down to look at old photographs, his memory stirs. How can a king, even one forced to abdicate, ever really let go? He still talks of his people. Those easeful moments hunting with a loyal guide in a still hillside around Kabul. Many Afghans also cling to this faded past, a golden age for long decades when Afghanistan was not at war. It seems incredible now. Positioned between the United States and the former Soviet Union, their soft-spoken, if indecisive king maneuvered between the great and the regional powers. A time when the king could drive in an open-topped car without fearing an assassin's bullet. In his shadow, then as now, is 78-year-old General Abdul Wali, his former military chief, son-in-law and cousin. Both men, in the twilight of their years, know the dangers all too well. Zahir Shah was only 19 when a disgruntled student shot dead his father, the King Nader Shah. A shocked young prince saw his father's round glasses splattered with blood.
There is always danger. If you think of those dangers, you cannot do anything. Of course I have fears for Afghanistan, as my generation do. For me there is pride, even if there is danger. I'm only afraid for my country. Of course there is always the unforeseen, but for the time being, I don't see that there is anything to be afraid of.
Every evening his extended family gathers round. This time there's his daughter, Princess Bilkis, General Wali's wife, and two of his adoring grandchildren, Daud and Mustafa. They know he doesn't want to die an old man outside his country. They know he has enemies within. But Zahir Shah somehow believes he hasn't lost his touch.
For now, I know that there are some people who do not accept me, but in spite of everything, I want to work with them and prove that we have a future. We have a country in common, we have common aims, we have common interests, we even face the same dangers. I'd like to persuade these people that we have to fight together for our country.
But does the former king really have the measure of his country?
Everything has been ready for at least, as far as I know, 9 days, even a bit longer. But
his grandson Mustafa was 9 at the time of the coup. Now 38, he's always on the telephone, constantly calling Afghanistan. Like his grandfather, he says he never really left his country.
When I came to Rome, my mother said, "What's that in your pocket? You look dusty." I said, "No, this is the soil of Afghanistan. I've put it in my pocket and I've brought it." And I've kept it ever since, and that stays under my pillow. I kiss it every night and I say my prayers.
But on Afghan soil, some politicians and warlords accuse members of Zahir Shah's entourage, in particular Mustafa, of harbouring ambitions to restore the monarchy. They don't want them back.
I don't seek office, I don't seek anything in Afghanistan. All I want is, as an Afghan, to return back to my country, to be amongst my people, and to have the honor of being part of this historical reconstruction of Afghanistan. That's all. And I would like to be on record on this.
And if you can't?
Well, I'll have to deal with it then.
The former king insists he's returning as an ordinary citizen, not a king. He told this gathering in Rome last year he only wants to serve his people, although he's begun to hint that if his people want to revive the monarchy, he'd respect their wishes.
It is not my wish, it is the people who must decide if they want a monarchy or not. I will see if there is such a desire from a sufficient majority of the people. It will not be up to me.
Afghan politics is a brutal game. Victory goes to those who seize it through cunning or force. Zahir Shah has played a slow, a cautious game. His critics say he's waited too long, let opportunities pass, and his strength fade. But with the Taliban's defeat and the nation exhausted by war, he at last makes his move. And so for Rome, the guard changes, but not as soon as they expected or would have liked. Under pressure from Washington, Italy has reluctantly agreed to send forces to protect the former king in Kabul. His return has been repeatedly delayed because of clear and ever-present threats.
I can't let a few obstacles stand in my way. I must have the courage to go forward. In the end, it's up to me, and I very much hope that the young people will put their faith in me. It's always like that. A generation has passed. I hope it won't all end in tragedy.
A moment many believed would never happen, including the king himself. They still call him Allah Hazrat. In Dari, it means Your Majesty. Even the act of return seems to invigorate him. The Afghan chairman Hamid Karzai, in his trademark attire, staked his own prestige on bringing the former king home safely. After decades of war, many looked to him as a new hope, a new start. But security concerns and his age means he'll have to keep some distance. It was an official, low-key arrival. But Afghans knew he was coming. Small crowds lined the route, hoping to see him. Once again, Zahir Shah is living in a fortress. A newly trained Afghan bodyguard keeps close watch. Inside, on his first day, Zahir Shah welcomes old friends and members of the interim government. I was also able to greet him. Many members of the Shah family have finally come home, but not Mustafa. For now, several powerful ministers have blocked his return. This is the start of a new Afghan politics. An old and new leader sit side by side. Hamid Karzai knows where he stands for now, but where does the former king fit? He's returned to a country scarred by more than 2 decades of war. A time and place of regal palaces is gone. In the 90s, Durulaman Palace was on the front line of bitter fighting between rival Mujahideen factions. Exquisite gardens were laid to ruin. The king's summer retreat met a similar fate. Now it's just teeth of stone against the sky. Scenes to distress a royal family who remember the pageants and picnics on a summer's day. The Arg, a complex of palaces in the heart of Kabul, is one of the few left more or less intact. Zahir Shah visits Hamid Karzai in the place where for decades the former king lived and worked. Now it's the chairman's seat of power. It's a fitting venue for Zahir Shah's re-entrance onto the political stage. The former monarch's presence has forced all the country's politicians to reassess their roles. Even long-time adversaries like the former Mujahideen president Burhanuddin Rabbani find it politic to turn up for lunch. The occasion is a canvas of Afghan political history. There's also a seat at the main table for former communists like the powerful Uzbek warlord General Dostam on the left. And there's a full supporting cast of royalists and tribesmen. It's all a bit overwhelming. After lunch, Zahir Shah steps back into the house he walked out of 29 years ago. It's a private moment. He goes from room to room, from his private quarters to his study. It's surprising so much is left. Communists, Mujahideen and Taliban have all had their time here. As he emerges from the palace, he tells us how moved he was. General Wali is as always at his side. I asked him what had marked him the most.
Il y a des surprises?
Oui.
Comme?
Il y a des gens qui sont venus, ils allaient.
When the Taliban came here, they went to the paintings and they gouged out the eyes of the faces and even of the birds. What an extraordinary sight to see.
A touch of royal Afghan humour. Scenes like this trouble the players who want to minimise the former king's profile. Kabul has been full of speculation about why the former king hasn't been making headlines on the country's nightly television news. The events of the day did make the main news that night. The first time Zahir Shah had been seen on television since his arrival 2 days earlier. That night, a sudden break in transmission had delayed the main news for a few hours. Hamid Karzai's office was furious. An investigation was launched, but the station insists it was a technical problem. The television station is in the hands of powerful Tajiks, once led by the famed Panjshiri commander Ahmad Shah Massoud. His speeches are still broadcast nightly, and his image is plastered all around the city. He was assassinated just before the events of September the 11th, but in some ways, he's still the most powerful man in town. He has several protégés in the new government. What are their worries about the former king?
تصور میکنم بعضی از دوستایی که در اطراف پادشاه قرار دارن به نحوی
I think there are some people around the former king who want to use his name and personality. They encourage him to give interviews indicating that he thinks about the restoration of the monarchy. But I don't think this is true. The former king knows his health won't allow him, and he knows he has come back to strengthen national unity, not to create differences among the people of Afghanistan.
I point out some Afghans are calling for the restoration of the monarchy.
There are some people who might think that way, but we have information that 90% of the people want to go forward, not back. We believe people do not want to see the restoration of the monarchy in any way. Most people want to be part of the world with a new and modern system.
The interim cabinet is dominated by Tajiks. It was their forces, driven by American bombing, who rode into Kabul last year. But the government does include other ethnic and political forces. Hamid Karzai, a southern Pashtun, may be in the chair, but he struggles to impose his authority. Hamid Karzai came to power with strong international and Afghan backing, but he has determined rivals. I put it to him that the presence of a popular Pashtun king can only help to consolidate his power, particularly among the willful Pashtun tribes.
Well, no, not really. He's a fatherly figure. He's a very, very nice person, a very national Afghan. With regard to myself as a person, in that automatically would refer to the Loya Jirga. Really, I have no desires or ambitions other than what the Loya Jirga would decide. If the Loya Jirga tomorrow decides that Karzai has done a good job together with his cabinet and we want him back to continue, it will be an honor and we will do it. If they say no, we want to choose somebody else, it will be taking Afghanistan some step forwards towards democracy, and we would love that and we would agree with that.
Everyone here talks about how Afghan politicians and warlords, your rivals, are now spending millions of dollars to buy support before the Loya Jirga, the traditional gathering in June. Do you worry that this will influence the outcome?
No. I think the Afghan people want, if given chance to determine their future, nothing will stop them from determining that.
This football pitch in Kabul will be the site of the Loya Jirga, the arena for Afghanistan's next political battle. By June, this field will be covered by one of the world's largest tents. 1,501 delegates from all over Afghanistan will meet here to choose their new leaders. For weeks now, there have been meetings about how it will all work. Should Afghanistan have a prime minister or a president? These Pashtun tribesmen even discuss a possible return of the monarchy. For now, Zahir Shah's only duty will be to open the Loya Jirga.
The Loya Jirga is a message to the people that there is a future for Afghanistan. It's a parliamentary system like any other. It's essential that people express their opinion, whatever their views are, whoever they are.
But not all centres of power are on board. From behind walled fortresses like these in the Pogman Hills south of Kabul, disaffected Mujahideen commanders are in league with disgruntled politicians, like the former president, Burhanuddin Rabbani.
I believe that the return of the monarchy to Afghanistan is not only inappropriate, but could cause trouble. If the former king works together with other important figures for peace, that could be useful. But if there are efforts for supremacy by one ethnic group or another, that could cause problems.
What are your concerns about the Loya Jirga? Do you think someone will try to rig the process?
In order for us to get to a democratic stage, the Loya Jirga should be properly representative of the people. At the moment, there are uncertainties around the activities of the Loya Jirga Commission.
These men, drawn from Afghanistan's diverse ethnic mix, are being trained for a national army. It's an urgent task. It won't be easy forging one force from many feuding factions. they'll have to march in step. Will disputes now be resolved without guns? This is the real test. The army is led by commanders who once turned their guns on each other. Now General Dostam is Deputy Minister of Defence.
The situation requires me to change my heart and my ideas for a democratic, free, independent Afghanistan. Don't think that I've only changed my clothes. I've changed my ideas as well. I no longer have the old ideas of militancy and of forming my own army.
Some members of the interim government seem to want to minimize the influence of the former king. Why do you think this is?
We know that without the king and his cooperation, it will not be possible to bring lasting peace and security to Afghanistan. If he has any opponents, my advice to them is to respect the king as an important elder. Whether we like it or not, a lot of people respect him.
That respect and affection is greatest among the Pashtuns. Thousands have demanded to see him. Only the tribal elders have been allowed to come to Kabul. They're carefully screened for these audiences. They speak of how their fathers, their grandfathers supported his father, his grandfather. It has been that way for centuries. And now this lost thread of Afghan history is being picked up and woven back into the traditional pattern, the bond between the people and their king. His voice is often just a whisper, but Zahir Shah seems to draw strength and power from his people. These men even say his return ended the 4 years of drought.
It's the same people, it's the same feeling. That's it. They're asking a lot of me, but I'm also promising them a lot. We're not sure what we can do, but we will try to do as much as we can.
I ask, do people tell you they want the monarchy back?
Well, that's another thing. As for me, it's not something I've ever wanted. My responsibility is to listen to the people, and if that's what they demand, I cannot refuse. Personally, I've always preferred to simply be a man, next to other men.
Zahir Shah never really wanted to be king. A visit to his father's tomb reminds him of how he was first thrust into power. Now he will spend his last years at home. The Loya Jirga will decide if he is to do more. We'll bring you news of the Loya Jirga in early June. But that's all for this Reporters Special. Do join us again next week. But for now, from me, Lyse Doucet in Kabul, goodbye.